This is Learning with Coach History. Welcome to the fourth lesson in a series of 7 on progressivism. Today we'll talk about women in public life. In this lesson, you're going to learn about the new and active roles women were taking in the workplace and in politics. The key terms and people: NACW, or the National Association of Colored Women; suffrage, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton; and NAWSA, which is the National American Women Suffrage Association. So before the Civil War, most married women worked at home. They cared for their families and didn't have paid jobs. By the end of the 1800s, however, many women had to work outside of the home in order to earn money for the family. Farm women continued to work as they always had. They did the cooking, cleaning, sewing, and child rearing. They helped with the crops and animals as well. As better paying opportunities in towns and cities became available, more women began working outside of the home. By 1900, 1 in 5 American women held jobs. 25% of them worked in manufacturing. About half of the women working in manufacturing were employed in the garment trades. They typically held the least skilled positions and were paid only half as much as men. Women also began filling new jobs in offices, stores, and classrooms. Women went to new business schools to learn to become bookkeepers and typists. These jobs required a high school education. Women without a formal education took jobs as domestic workers, cleaning houses and taking care of children of other families. Almost 2 million African American workers worked on farms and in cities as domestic workers and laundresses, also scrub women and maids. Unmarried immigrant women did domestic labor, took in piecework, or opened their homes to boarders. Many women were not allowed to own property, so money they earned at jobs became the property of their husbands. This began to change in 1839 when the first state passed a law giving women the right to own property. Dangerous conditions, long hours, and low wages caused working women to fight for reforms. The Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in New York City in 1911 killed 146 young workers. Most of them were Jewish or immigrant girls, and this spurred the cause for reform. Women who became active in public life attended college. New women's colleges such as Vassar, Smith, and Wesley opened. By the late 19th century, marriage was no longer a woman's only choice. Many women joined the workforce or attended college. These women often applied their skills to needed social reforms. Women could not directly bring about changes in law because they could not vote or hold public office. Because of this, they often concentrated their reform efforts in improving conditions at work and at home. Uneducated laborers were among the first to seek workplace health and safety reforms. Early reform groups became stronger as educated women joined. In 1896, African American women founded the National Association of Colored Women, or NACW. This group helped improve educational opportunities for African Americans by managing nurseries, reading rooms, and kindergartens. Women's crusade for suffrage, or the right to vote, began at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. The women's movement split over whether or not to support the 14th and 15th Amendments, which granted the vote to African American men, but not to women of any race. Susan B. Anthony led the opposition. Anthony joined with reformer Elizabeth Cady Stanton to create the National American Women Suffrage Association, or the NAWSA. Women's suffrage faced many obstacles. The liquor industry was afraid that if women gained the right to vote, they would cast their vote in favor of prohibition. The textile industry thought that they would vote to restrict child labor, and many women were happy with the women's role as they were and didn't want any change. Women tried 3 approaches to win the vote. First, they tried to convince state legislators. Second, They went to court to clarify whether the provisions of the 14th Amendment meant women should be allowed to vote. And third, they pushed for a national constitutional amendment to grant women the vote. Women had both successes and failures with these strategies. Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and Idaho granted voting rights to women, but efforts in other states failed. The Supreme Court ruled in 1875 that women were citizens, but denied that this meant that they had any right to vote. The idea of a national constitutional amendment was voted down several times. This is Learning with Coach History.